So, Kathleen Kennedy has spoken, and I have heard a million cries in the void, Star Wars fans. Here she is saying that, Star Wars stories no longer need to connect to the originals. And that follows Mark Hamill moving away from Luke Skywalker in the future. Now, I actually don't disagree with this at all. I just don't believe or trust Lucasfilm and Disney to be the individuals, the creative force, or indeed, of course, just the studio in general, behind this kind of move. So, although on its face, I do agree with this, and I think most people would agree with this, right? Not every single story has to be centered around, Skywalker, and that. They weren't, as a lineage, the only Jedi, right? We can move off into the void elsewhere and tell new stories and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think actually as a concept, you do need to get away from all of this stuff. But they're only doing that, of course, because they've butchered it. Because they've butchered the legacy of Skywalker. And everyone is just like, thanks for that, KK. So anyway, we're going to dive into this. Please do hit subscribe if you are new here. There's a lot of people that watch the channel, about 50% that are not subscribed, and I can't grow this channel without you guys. And it's great to have you here more often. So hit that subscribe button if you could. And I do apologise, I have to do this every now and then. Anyway, so she has spoken. Kathleen Kennedy. I'll leave this article linked down below. But as it says here, look. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't think the future of Star Wars lies in honouring its past. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy is once again under fire from long-time Star Wars fans, this time for new comments she made whilst promoting a rare theatrical screening of the original 1977 Star Wars at the BFI Film Festival in London. She was in my neck of the woods. So the showing featured the original cut of the film, famously unavailable on modern home media. Ironically, the screening appears to have gone ahead against the wishes of George Lucas, who has long resisted releasing the unaltered versions of his films. Fair enough. I think the additions that he did were dumb, quite frankly. Like, a lot of it is really dumb, but never mind. All of this, and subsequent dialogue that I will get to from her, does seemingly signify, I don't know, trying to move away into pastures new. Basically just trying to appease fans, give sort of red meat out to the fans. Here you go, here's some red meat, eat it, chow down on it. That's what it says. But yeah, I'm rather cynical about it. So Kathleen Kennedy wasn't just there to introduce the film. She also made some eyebrow-raising statements about where Star Wars is heading next, and perhaps more tellingly, what Lucasfilm is ready to leave behind in the future. So she said this, quote, "I really think that now we're in a position where it's broadened the possibility of stories and filmmakers we can bring in to tell stories that mean something to them. Famously, Lucasfilm allowing creative control." Alright then. It doesn't necessarily have to connect to every little thing that's been done in Star Wars. It can actually be a standalone story that then builds into many, many other stories. Yeah, I agree. Don't trust you to do it, though. Jesus. So that statement echoes recent remarks from Mark Hamill, who basically says, "I just don't see any reason to return. Let me put it that way. I mean, they have so many stories to tell. They don't need Luke anymore." Which is, I agree. And he says, "It felt like a conclusion. My character was given complete closure. They can do westerns, mysteries, comedy. I just think it's time." And again, I agree. Just don't believe they're the company for it. And again, there's a lot of cynicism for it. But there's a wealth of history behind me having that cynical take, right? And I'm sure you guys as well watching. It's not like we don't have years worth of terrible content to go, well, look at this. Are you the company for it? Probably not. So, yeah. Anyway, Kennedy's biggest gamble with creative freedom came in the sequel trilogy itself, which is hilariously. Rather than map out a clear, cohesive arc for the new saga, she famously handed the reins to two directors with vastly different visions, which was J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. Each made the story meaningful to them, with no firm narrative plan. The result was a trilogy at odds with itself. The Force Awakens retread familiar ground, The Last Jedi burned it all down, and The Rise of Skywalker tried desperately to glue it all back together. So, yeah. So now Kennedy's recent comments suggest she hasn't learnt from those mistakes. But not only that, I just don't trust her to even do that. You know, doubling down on the idea that Star Wars should be a blank canvas for storytellers, rather than a living mythology grounding in themes, tone, and characters that resonate with fans across generations. So I agree, actually, with the... I agree that it should be connected, but I disagree with the writer's take on this, is that her commentary doesn't necessarily imply that that is where they were going to go. And I think, actually, you can do standalone stories which are still connected thematically and in universe in terms of no weird lore canon breaking events. You can do that. Again, I don't necessarily believe that that is going to be the case for them either, though, just as an FYI. It says here, critics have pointed out that Kennedy's language about stories that mean something to the filmmakers may explain the increasingly disjointed tone of recent Star Wars media. Which I guess is actually them just trying to throw shit out a wall and seeing what sticks, in fairness. And even this article notes it. You know, it's worth noting the symbolism of Kennedy releasing the original Star Wars. Because Lucas did not personally endorse this specific presentation, has remained famously opposed to releasing the original unaltered trilogy in any official capacity. But that, again, that's just Kathleen Kennedy throwing out red meat. So there you go. I mean, look, I agree wholesale that Star Wars stories don't need to connect to the originals. I agree with that. I don't, however, agree that Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm, at least under Disney's ownership, are the right studio to do it. I also don't necessarily agree that Kathleen Kennedy didn't have any oversight over the sequel trilogy. I think they did. And I think she probably agreed a lot of stuff, whether that's because she's an idiot or not, is what it is. But there you go. Kathleen Kennedy has spoken. Star Wars is still dead.